Hi everyone, and welcome to my first real-life creative deck profile. Today, I'm featuring my real version of Flame Swordsman Fire King. You might have seen my original profile on my channel a few months back, but this is the new improved version, one that I've used to terrorize my locals and actually come in first place the last few weeks in a row. So let's dive into the build, and then I'll talk through some of the essential combos later. Let's begin with the monsters, and I'll start with the Flame Swordsman engine. Mirage Swordsman is up first, and I'm running 2 copies of him. Mirage Swordsman is the glue that holds this hybrid deck together, as when destroyed, Mirage special summons any level 7 or lower monster that mentions Flame Swordsman from either your deck or extra deck. In almost all cases, you'll summon out this next guy, which I run 3 copies of, Fighting Flame Swordsman. Fighting Flame Swordsman is the first key consistency element, as when it's summoned, it adds any spell or trap that mentions Flame Swordsman from your deck to your hand. Then, whenever it's sent to the graveyard, you get to send any monster that mentions Flame Swordsman from either your deck or extra deck to the graveyard as well. In most cases, you'll be sending this guy, my 1 copy of Salamandra, the Flying Flame Dragon. Whenever this level 2 monster is sent to the graveyard, it lets you add any Salamandra card from your deck to your hand. In other words, whenever Mirage is destroyed, that leads into Fighting Flame, who then leads into Salamandra, and you have your entire Flame Swordsman engine available just from a single Mirage. I'll come back to all this later in terms of what you're searching and why this is impactful, but that sort of sets aside our Flame Swordsman monsters and lets us dive into the meat and bones of the second archetype at play here, and that is the Fire King. The Fire King monsters are fire monsters that love to be destroyed, and I would be remiss not to start with my dear new arrival to the TCG, Fire King Courtier Olcanix, and I'm running 3 copies of her. This recently got imported in Rage of the Abyss, and it's a great starter because when it's summoned, it can destroy any other fire in your hand or on the field to tutor any fire, beast, beast warrior, or winged beast monster, and then it can become that tutored monster's level. So not only does this serve as a great enabler for your own Fire King combos or for Mirage Swordsman combos, but this also sets up for Xyz summons, it also sets up for giving you more material. It's just all around a great way to start out a play. Next up is the other Fire King monster that's great at destroying any fire monsters, and that is Fire King High Avatar Kirin, who also is played in triplicate. This can special summon itself from the hand during either main phase by destroying a fire monster on your field or in your hand. And this is key for 1, triggering Mirage during your opponent's turn, but also for dodging pesky effects like Infinite Impermanence or Effect Veiler by destroying a fire monster that your opponent has targeted. It also has a great second effect, as when destroyed, it special summons a Fire King from your hand or graveyard and then destroys a card on the field. This is non-targeting, it destroys during the chain, and that can really force your opponent to play out of intended order just to avoid losing something that they regret losing otherwise. The last Fire King monster that I play in triplicate is Fire King Ponix, Legendary Fire King Ponix. This is the level 1 winged beast, and whenever it is summoned, it adds any Fire King spell or trap from the deck to the hand. It also has an inherent way of special summoning itself, as when a fire monster is destroyed, it can special summon itself from the hand, giving you that additional material and additional fun body to play with, and really helps keep the game going, especially due to the power level of some of the Fire King spell and trap cards. Next up is the main deck boss of the Fire Kings, 2 copies of Sacred Fire King Garunix. This level 8 also special summoned itself when a fire is destroyed, except Sacred Garunix can come from either the hand or graveyard. Then, when you do, it can destroy a fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast from your hand, deck, field, really anywhere. This lets you trigger your Fire King effects from the deck, in addition to just giving you an extra level 8 beat stick for Xyz summons, for Link summons, for all your plays down the road. To close this out for the monsters, I have 4 more Fire King that I want to highlight, and they're each played at 1 copy apiece, as they overall just help the deck out in different ways. And first up is Fire King Avatar Barong. This is your consistency piece among the Fire King monsters. It can be special summoned from the hand, much like some other Fire Kings whenever any Fire King is destroyed by effect. But more importantly, during the standby phase after it's destroyed, you get to add any Fire King card from your deck to your hand. This is a great target to destroy from the deck with Sacred Garunics if you're going first. The next two monsters I want to cover are Fire King Avatar Avrata and Fire King Avatar Rangbali, as they're effectively siblings. Each can destroy a fire monster on your another fire monster, not itself, on your hand or field to either, in Avrata's case, negate a monster effect activation, or in Rangbali's case, negate a spell or trap. This gives you additional disruptions to play, and I run both, as you can always side out the one that's weakest against your specific opponent. This brings me to the last monster, the OG Fire King High Avatar Garunix. This level 8 is mainly included in the build because when Courtier Arcanix is destroyed, it special summons a copy of the OG Garunix directly from the deck. Who doesn't love a free level 8 body? But it also has some tricks of its own, as during the standby phase after it's destroyed, it special summons itself back from the graveyard and destroys all other monsters in the field. This is a great way to disrupt an opponent's established board. If you're going first, if you're going second and have a way to destroy it on the first turn, you have to apply some pressure even from the standby phase. But all in all, it's really mainly used as a garnet to support Volcanics. With that, let's wrap up the monsters and get into the spells and traps. Alright, I've completed my light spring cleaning, so let's get into the spell cards. As before, I'll start with the Flame Swordsman support. First up is 3 copies of Fighting Flame Sword, and this is a quick play spell with 3 different effects. First, it can tutor any card that mentions Flame Swordsman. Second, when a card or effect is activated that target is a Flame Swordsman or a monster that mentions it, it can negate that effect. And third, whenever an attack is declared involving any Fire Warrior monster, it can be used to destroy a card in the field. While you'll typically you can only use one of these effects during the turn, I like to use this during the draw phase to grab a copy of Mirage and avoid Droll and Lockbird from stopping your searching combos. Next up is the continuous spell card, Flame Swords Realm. This continuous spell lets you send any monster from your hand or field to the graveyard to force fusion summon Flame Swordsman out of your extra deck. It's really as simple as that, it just gets you a copy of your Flame Swordsman. Additionally, whenever any attack is declared, it can target a Fire Warrior you control, make it lose 1,000 attack, and make every other monster you control gain 1,000 attack. This can really swing an end board and let you OTK out of nowhere, and since that's a soft once per turn effect, you can actually use it multiple times if you have multiple copies of Realm that you've built up over the duel. The last Flame Swordsman spell is Salamandra Fusion. This equip spell can when equipped to a Flame Swordsman, it can send itself and Flame Swordsman to the graveyard to faux fusion summon any monster that mentions Flame Swordsman from your extra deck. This is your tool for getting to your ultimate Flame Swordsman, and I'll definitely come back to this later in the combo section. Moving away from the Flame Swordsman cards, let's talk about the Fire King. It should come as no surprise that I am running 3 copies of Fire King Island and 2 copies of Fire King Sanctuary. Island is pretty well known for destroying any monster on your field or hand to tutor any Fire King monster. And Sanctuary is used because it just places an island on your field. This is a great card for improving consistency and access to your Fire King monsters, in addition to triggering your Mirage or any of your Fire King effects. It's just all around really powerful. And even though it does have a downside of when it's banished or destroyed, Sanctuary lets you alleviate some of that because it can protect Island from being destroyed by an opponent's effect. With these out of the way, let's talk about the last 2 Fire King cards that I run 1 copy each of, and that is Fire King Skyburn and Circle of the Fire Kings. Fire King Skyburn lets you destroy cards on each field. Fire Kings you control and any cards your opponent controls, as long as you destroy an equal number on both. Encircle the Fire Kings lets you destroy a fire monster you control and special summon a fire from your graveyard. It does target, so unfortunately you have to pick and open yourself up to called by, but I like each of these for different reasons. Circle is great for applying more pressure during the battle phase, swapping out a monster that's already attacked for someone who hasn't yet. Whereas Skyburn is a great in-theme way to destroy floodgates, things like Dimensional Fissure or anything that Runic decks plays nowadays. This is a great card to just search out and then destroy cards you control and your opponent controls and really just wrestle control of the duel. Moving away from the Fire King cards themselves into some thematic support, we have the last 4 spells of the deck. First up is 2 copies of Rekindling. This is a fire deck. Multiple monsters have 200 defense. Enough said. I don't really think I have to get more into that. But the more card that I want to spend additional time on is Firestorms over Atlantis, a new normal spell from the Rage of the Abyss set. This card has different effects for fire or water decks, but the fire deck is very important in here because it can destroy a fire monster in your hand and let you draw a card. It's simple as that. That is great for triggering all of your effects, but why I use it is actually its graveyard effect, as it can be banished from the graveyard when you control no monsters to special summon any level 7 or level 8 water or fire monster. What can you bring out with Atlantis? You can bring out a copy of Mirage. You can bring out a copy of Sacred Garunix. You can bring out OG Garunix. You can bring out Kieran. Any of these things can be brought out to start applying pressure, especially as games start to go long. As you see with the Fire King cards, as you will see with the extra deck Flame Swordsman stuff, you can destroy a lot. So typically duels extend beyond your first turn or two. What this does is gives you even more of a powerful grind game, while also letting you dig through your deck if you do happen to draw into it. And so that's why I really love Atlantis and what it offers to the deck. So let's move these to the side and get into our trap cards. First up is we have 2 traps for the Flame Swordsman archetype, 2 of Salamandra with Chain. Salamandra with Chain equips to any fire monster on the field, gives it 700 attack, and then it lets you set a monster on the field into face-down defense. So it's sort of like an in-theme Book of Moon that's searchable by Flying Flame Dragon. But what's very important about this card is it does not target what it sets face down, and also it can equip to an opponent's monster. With so many fire decks running around, from Snake Eyes to other Fire King variants, to people just running Promethean Princess, this thing can be used to shut down an opponent's turn in the middle. And since it's searchable, it can really build out an end board if you want to be conservative and play around Nibiru. It also has a second effect that lets you fusion summon using materials in the graveyard. Really, really impactful effect whenever you have plenty of ways to send monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard to load up for material. Moving along to the other traps, I include 1 copy of Echelon of the Fire Kings. I'm a big believer in this card since it summons out a Fire Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast monster, 1 from your hand, 1 from your deck, and 1 from your graveyard. Because this synergizes extremely well with the Fire King archetype, especially now that you have more ways to search things with volcanics in the game. It also can be banished from your graveyard to prevent the opponent from responding to any Fire King summons for the turn. And that lets you play with peace of mind. Well, yeah, play at peace and peace of mind, I guess, are the same thing. But that really lets you play through disruption that your opponent builds and forces them to negate more effects that they otherwise would pass in a normal situation. And then for the final 2 cards in the main deck, I have a copy of Silhouette Trick and Angel Statue Azaroon. Both of these are included in here for Silhouette Rabbit in the extra deck. I love including both because each has matchups that it's better in. Azaroon, as pretty much everyone knows, shuts down Tenpai really hard, and then Silhouette Trick is a great generic option for negating things. It also serves as yet another card for negating floodgates in a pinch, which is something that traditional Fire King decks can lose to, and that's why I want every tool possible in my tool belt in order to protect it. So with that, let's move away from the main deck and talk about some of the extra deck cards at play today. Alright team, we're getting there. So let's talk about the extra deck, and I'm going to start with the fusion monsters. First up, I run 3 copies of Flame Swordsman. This is a Flame Swordsman deck. Use Flame Swordsman cards. Simple as that. Next up is Fighting Flame Dragon, the level 5 fire dragon for the theme. You're not typically going to fusion summon this monster, but it can be equipped from your field or graveyard to a Flame Swordsman monster, or a monster that mentions Flame Swordsman, and it gives it 700 additional attack and the ability to make a second attack during the battle phase. What makes this especially potent is if you pair it with the boss of the theme, Ultimate Flame Swordsman. This level 8 Fire Warrior fusion is the boss monster for the Flame Swordsman cards and the reason to use it. It can be made using Salamander Fusion equipped to a Flame Swordsman, or if you fusion summon these 2 monsters together. But what it can do is, when it's equipped with an equip card, which is either a copy of Fighting Flame Dragon or a copy of your Salamander, the Flying Flame, it has a quick effect to destroy an opponent's monster and inflict 500 damage. More importantly, whenever it declares an attack, during the damage step, it can double its attack power. Now, this monster is already sitting at 2800. If you give it an equip monster that gives it an additional 700 attack, that gets you up to 35. And yeah, that's a 7000 attack beat stick coming straight for your opponent's face. Or a double attacking the 7000 attack beat stick coming straight for their face. Or if you throw in Realm, that's an additional 1000 attack that can get doubled. This monster ends games. And that's what makes this Flame Swordsman engine so potent, is that while your opponent is trying to disrupt your Fire King combos, everyone knows the power the Fire Kings have. No one really expects a Flame Swordsman or Ultimate Flame Swordsman to come out of left field and just OTK the opponent out of nowhere. And that is what this deck brings. It brings a truly game-ending threat that synergizes with the rest of the deck. And honestly, it's something that the Fire King Azamina hybrid deck just doesn't have, because they rely on the disruptions that the Azamina cards give and the general power of the Sinful Spoils engine. So with the Flame Swordsman cards out of the way, let's go into the Xyz monsters, and I run 2. First up is a single copy of Garunix Eternity, Wang of the Fire Kings. This rank 8 Pyro Xyz monster can be made with 2 level 8 monsters, and when it's Xyz summoned, it can destroy all of their monsters in the field. Its second effect is that it lets it detach a material to destroy a spell or trap the opponent controls. So, wipe their board? Great. Kill back row? Great. But then even further, it has a third effect, as when it's destroyed when it has material, it gets to special summon Fire King monsters up to the number of material it had. So, this synergizes extremely well with all of your cards that destroy, but it also means that if you stick this out there and leave it out there, your opponent's going to have to find a way without destroying it to get it off the board. And if they try too hard, or if they target it, you can always just drop a Kieran to destroy it yourself to get that effect. The other Xyz monster I use is Gaga Cowboy. Combined with Ultimate Flame Swordsman and Cowboy, those are your ways to win in time, as each inflicts damage. You also have plenty of level 4 monsters between your Fire Kings, between your Fighting Flame Swordsman, so that's why Cowboy is a great go-to way to win in time. Moving away from the Xyz monsters and onto the Lynx, I already told you this was coming, so here's Silhouette Rabbit. This is why I run the 2 continuous traps. It's just a way to turn 2 monsters into additional disruptions for the opponent's turn. This is especially great if you have a Ponix you've already used and you just want to convert it into some more advantage for yourself. Well, you have options. Pairing with Rabbit, I have a copy of IP Masquerena. Again, much like Rabbit, it's a way to turn 2 monsters into additional disruptions for the opponent's turn. And in Masquerade's case, it can be used to go into a number of things. I particularly love pairing this in almost all my decks with Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, since this can be used to blink away an opponent's threat and also negate all face-up monsters they control. But it's up to you however you use Masquerena during the opponent's turn, or you can just use it to protect your own link monster during your turn from being destroyed by card effects. Your opponent's card effects, sorry, your Fire King monsters can still be destroyed by themselves. To round out the extra deck, I have a couple of generics. I run Relinquished Anima because Ponix is level 1 and people still summon to the zones it can point to. I run a copy of Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Unicorn because I still love the genericness of additional ways to destroy or spin your opponent's cards. I would probably replace this with a Promethean Princess if I had one, but I don't own that card, so we're stuck with the Unicorn for now. And then the last monster I use is Ritual Beast Ulti Retu Chiari. I probably mispronounced that. Ritual Beast players, please don't be mean to me. Anywho, I'm running this link for because it is a quick effect banish, and it also prevents your opponent from tributing cards. The tributing might not come into much play, but the quick effect banish of banishing itself and an opponent's card can be especially potent given that the whole entire rest of our deck is hellbent on destruction. And if you run into something that can't be destroyed, well, you better have a backup plan. In this case, Retroari is my backup plan as it can banish itself and a card the opponent controls during their turn. Alright, that wraps up the extra deck. I'll just cover the side deck really quickly here. As I always say, the side deck is really up to personal preference, and you'll definitely see that my side deck meets that description. I run through Raboku, mainly to shut down Tenpai. It's really funny to flip that and then watch them cry after they've already dedicated their resources to trying to OTK you. Second, I run 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier. Dimensional Barrier can shut down any deck that relies exclusively on one extra deck type, whether it's Centurion with Synchros, whether it's really one extra deck type, it shuts down for the turn. And that is just such a powerful trap that I love having that around. Next up, I run 3 copies of Ice Dragon Prison. Ice Dragon Prison special summons a monster from the opponent's graveyard, and then you can banish 1 monster from each field that have the same type. So typically you steal a monster from the opponent's graveyard, then banish what you stole in addition to a monster they control. This is a generic removal option that works against a lot of decks, and that's why I include a copy of it, so many copies of it. It actually ends up being the card I side in the most generically in duels, and I just overall love the flair. You might have a better option here, but it's worked for me, so I'm going to stick to that. My next off-of-the-wall tech card that I run is I run 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. This card you might not be familiar with too much anymore, but it can be tributed from either your hand or field to prevent the opponent from banishing cards for the rest of their turn, and it can only be used during the opponent's turn. What does this mean? It means that nothing gets banished. Fire King have a gaping hole to Dimension Shifter. That is a given. But if you Lancia, which you can under Shifter, that basically means that you have the opponent's turn to destroy things and trigger your Fire King effects, to use your Kieran to make advantage out of a really bad situation. I wish it could work on your turn. That would be awesome. It can't, so I use it as a hand trap. Plus, it's a really fun way to counter a Bestial effect. If you chain it, they can't summon the Bestial, and then they get Sad Panda. As for our last cards, I run 2 copies of Unending Nightmare. Unending Nightmare is a continuous trap that lets you pay 1,000 to destroy a face-up spell or trap. Again, this is pretty heavy anti-stun. It destroys face-up cards. I also run it because it's a great tech against Yubel. It can destroy the field spell, it can destroy their continuous spells, it can, if you in a pinch, destroy the Fiendsmith equipped monsters. It's overall a good tech option that I just really appreciate. It does cost a lot of life points, which can be dangerous going into time, but that is worth it in terms of trade-off for me. And then the last one-off copy I have right now in my side deck is Flame Swordsman. This is the normal trap support for the Flame Swordsman archetype, and it is another effectively non-targeting Book of Moon, as it can be activated when a monster is special summoned. It special summons any level 7 or lower monster that mentions Flame Swordsman or Flame Swordsman from your extra deck, and then you set a monster on the field face down. Additionally, it can be banished from the graveyard to tribute a set monster you control, and special summon one of those Flame Swordsman or monster that mentions it from your deck or extra deck. I mainly use one copy because it's just an additional Book of Moon against a deck that could really affect. But it also is a great tech against Mimikyu, which is a really annoying threat if you have to flip someone before you do your plays. So I run a copy of this that's searchable, that can be searched off of a special summon of Flame Swordsman, and it's just a fun 15th card for my side deck. So that wraps up my build for today. So let's get into some of the combos in the next segment. So for our first combo, I'm going to start with walking through the Flame Swordsman cards, since this might be the piece of the deck that you're very unfamiliar with. And it really all begins with Mirage Swordsman, but it can begin with the next monster in the chain too. Mirage, when destroyed, special summons a monster that mentions Flame Swordsman. So in this case, we have Fighting Flame Swordsman that you'll bring out from your deck. When it's special summoned, it adds any spell or trap that mentions Flame Swordsman. And in that case, you'll grab Flame Sword's Realm. Sword's Realm can then be activated, and you can send your Fighting Flame Swordsman to the graveyard to special summon a Flame Swordsman from the extra deck. This is treated as a fusion summon if you ever need to bring back Flame Swordsman in the future, but what this also accomplishes is it triggers Fighting Flame Swordsman's effect in the graveyard to bring out Salamandra, the Flying Flame Dragon, directly from the deck to the graveyard. Once it hits the graveyard, Salamandra will add any Salamandra card, or in this case, Salamandra Fusion. Once you equip your Salamandra Fusion to Flame Swordsman, both can be sent to the graveyard to fusion summon Ultimate Flame Swordsman, and your Salamandra can come back from the graveyard and equip as an equip card, giving it 700 additional attack. What this combo accomplished, at the cost of not a normal summon, you just have a Mirage in the graveyard, is that you put up this Ultimate Flame Swordsman on the board with 3,500 attack, a quick effect that can destroy an opponent's monster and inflict 500 to them. When Salamandra is then sent to the graveyard during the opponent's turn, you'll get to search another Salamandra card, such as Salamandra with Chain. And if your opponent does the unthinkable and gets over this one boss monster, your Mirage Swordsman comes back from the graveyard, as it can be special summoned back from the graveyard whenever any fire fusion monster is destroyed. Now that's a once per turn effect, but do this, and now if your opponent destroys this, you get another copy of Fighting Flame Swordsman, and now you're fully set up for a combo on the opponent's turn. In the last combo, I talked about just destroying Mirage, but I didn't quite harp on how easy it is to destroy Mirage. You see, every card on the field around Mirage right now either destroys Mirage, or it gets you to a card that destroys Mirage. Like Ponix gets you to Sanctuary, which gets you to Island. Kieran and Alcanix can just destroy Mirage directly, and so can Firestorms. Also remember, getting to Mirage is easy, as Fighting Flamesword exists in 3 copies that you can just grab it right out of the deck. And you might not even need to go through Mirage, and that's the important part I want you to remember. Because Sword's Realm can send any monster, and Mirage is just a good way of getting to Sword's Realm and Fighting Flame Sword. So if you already have your level 4 Fighting Flame Swordsman, you could just normal summon it to get this full Flame Swordsman combo, even without needing Mirage. Sure, it's a lot stronger if you go through Mirage, and that's really the benefit of this hybrid. But even if you get a really dead hand of just a hand of Flame Swordsman cards, they can still put up a board. Or if you just get a hand of Fire King cards, the Fire King cards can definitely stand on their own. And that is the beauty of this hybrid deck. In this last segment, let's just start with a true random hand and go from there and play it out to see what happens. So we draw the first 5 cards. We have Volcanics, we have a Flame Swords Realm, Kirin, Mirage, and a copy of Fighting Flame Swordsman. How I would play this out is I'd normal summon Volcanics, activate its effect to destroy fire in hand and search a card. If the opponent changed Imperm or Veiler, you could always Kirin to destroy Volcanics to make sure it resolves properly. Let's assume they didn't have any of that for now, and we'll destroy Mirage and add with Volcanics a copy of Sacred Fire King Garunix from the deck. Now that the chain resolves, a new chain begins, with Mirage Chainlink 1 in the graveyard, and Garunix Chainlink 2 in the hand. Garunix will special summon itself from the hand, and then Mirage will special summon a copy of Fighting Flamesword from the deck. Alright, yet again we have another chain situation, where Garunix will be Chainlink 1, Fighting Flamesword will be Chainlink 2. Fighting Flamesword can grab any card, any spell or trap that mentions Flame Swordsman. So in this case, since I already have a copy of the Flame Swords Realm in hand, I'm going to grab my copy of Salamander Fusion and get it out of the way early. Then with Garunix, I get to destroy effectively any Fire King card from the deck. And since we're just getting started early here, I'm going to destroy a copy of Barong just so I can fill up on Fire King cards and get the game moving. Alright, now that we have this board, Swords Realm can activate, sending my Fighting Flame Swordsman to the graveyard to special summon Flame Swordsman from the extra deck. Now that Fighting Flame has been sent to the graveyard, we can send a copy of our Flying Flame Dragon from the deck to the graveyard. This then triggers tutoring any Salamander card. So, since we already have the copy of Fusion in our hand, we can use this search to grab a copy of Salamander with Chain. Now, you have a couple of options. You can of course go for a Salamander Fusion play and Fusion summon with Flame Swordsman and bring out your ultimate Flame Swordsman from the extra deck and equip it with a Salamander from the graveyard. Set a card from the hand, and voila! We now have 2 level 8 monsters. We have a level 8 ultimate Flame Swordsman. We have a Barong in the graveyard that's going to search a Fire King card. We still have a Kirin in the hand to be able to do fun stuff during the opponent's turn. And we have a set Salamander with Chain that can be used to flip an opponent's monster face down. Oh, did I mention the quick effect destroy? If I didn't, I apologize. We'll mention it again. You can also convert these two into an Silhouette Rabbit to either the extra monster zones. And when that's summoned, let me just shift this down so you can see it. When it's summoned, that will grab either a copy of Silhouette Trick or Azaroon to add yet another disruption to your end board. I typically default to Silhouette Trick, but I do know that Azaroon is better in certain matchups. So in this case, we end still with the Quick Effect Destroy, we end with the Quick Effect Book of Moon, we end with the set Silhouette Trick to negate face-up cards. Silhouette Rabbit will destroy a card whenever this is special summoned. And then if this is destroyed, Garunix can come back, your Mirage can come back, you still have Barong. All of these cards really just played off of one monster that destroyed and a Mirage Swordsman to be destroyed. Again, this is just one sample hand. There's plenty more that you can try yourself if you go to build this deck, but I wanted to show you what this actually looked like in practice and why I think this is one of the top decks that you should really try out if you've never seen it before. While I close out this IRL profile, let me share the digital version of the deck list and scan through all the cards like normal so you can reference their exact names and carded effects. Meanwhile, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this significant variation on my normal content. If you'd like to see more of this type of video, such as other decks I've successfully built and used in real life, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to let me know if you have any tips, tricks, or just overall feedback on the format. I'm clearly new at this type of thing, and would love to hear how to do it better. With that said, we're reaching the end of scanning through the list, so time for me to sign off. Quincy out.